Hello, this is a test of the audio of this live stream. Is it existing at the moment? That seems pretty good. Hello everyone, how are we all? All 1, 2 people watching. Neither of those are real, probably. I don't know. Anyway, I hope you're all alright. First update, and most relevant, is you may have noticed I've done it 2 hours later today. And I've moved them to 6 PM GMT, and they're going to be at 6 PM GMT for the rest of their existence, because I like to lie in really late, and I used to have to get up. I mean, I never slept until 4, but I like to get up 2 hours before I do everything to give my brain time to wake up, and I'd usually sometimes I'd lay in up to 4, and I just like to lay in, so I've moved them 2 hours further forward so that I can just lay in for as long as I want, because I'm never in bed, or I'm very rarely ever in bed at 4, so that's fine. Although it didn't actually matter today, because today I got up at 8 because I wanted to finish recording side 1 of the next Moid album. Digby! That was loud, sorry. Went right past the red and into the clipped. Hello, Digby. Welcome back to my channel. It's been a while since you've been here. How are you doing? Is a question that you can answer. And then you can also ask any questions that you want to know the answer to. And if they're relevant to what I'm talking about at the time, I'll answer them straight away, and if they're not, I'll answer them at the end. Are my ears? Yeah, it is, isn't it? Sorry about that. I did apologise. Most headphones do have the ability to turn down though, so anyway, so we'll start with oh, and also just a little update. Not much has happened, but my mum got me a new blazery, jackety kind of thing, so I'll just get that to show you. So it's a kind of grey, a very slightly blue, but really just grey blazer made of wool, which is very nice. And it's got this kind of Prince of Wales, I think that's what that check is on the sort of collar. I would be wearing it. Sorry, why does it clip so easy? I'm sorry about that. I would be wearing it, but it's warm. Even though it's the middle of winter, it's still incredibly warm. So, looks snazzy, thank you. I look forward to being able to wear it when it's colder in the summer. So we'll start with things I've done. I've done one thing, the Nitus short film, which some of you may remember. I was originally going to be feature length, but it was too crap to make it feature length, so I've just compiled all the bits I had filmed together and released it as it is. It's not very good, but at least it's out there now. We're what's the first thing to do? Plans for next month. Don't really have any. Do more of the album, I suppose. I have made no, I'm not even gonna bother. I was gonna say I made a New Year's resolution, but it probably wasn't gonna happen. So it doesn't really matter. Well, I'll just say I had a New Year's resolution, which was gonna be to make some kind of art, whether it was film or music or anything, with another person. very unlikely to happen. So not even gonna bother sticking to it. But anyway, films and TV show. This is what we're all here for. Well, I'm actually here for looking forward to talk about the albums that I've listened to, but nevertheless. First thing I watched this month that I hadn't previously watched was Ricky Gervais's Animals stand-up. His first stand-up special. I'd seen all of his others, but I hadn't yet seen Animals. And it's obviously very funny. I mean, it's early Ricky Gervais, and early Ricky Gervais is great. So that's that. Then I watched a 1984 film comedy Robin Williams film called Moscow on the Hudson, because I was randomly recommended a clip from the film where he's walking through the supermarket saying coffee, and I just decided to watch it based entirely on that clip. Not rare, it's not often that happens, but I wanted to. Then I watched almost all of a TV show, Life's Too Short, which was a Ricky Gervais, Stephen Merchant, Warwick Davis collaboration. Very, very funny, although really annoyingly, the website that I had, there's first 2 seasons and then there's a special. Oh no, sorry, there's 1 season and a special. The 1 season is on, and I watched it, but I couldn't find the special anywhere, so I haven't actually seen all of it yet. But it was very good, what I had seen. Then I watched... then I watched the latest Owl House episode, season 3, episode 2, For the Future. Very, 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 very good. Very good. I mean, it's really annoying that, there's only one more left. But this one was really, really good. I mean, the entire show is good, but you know what I mean. Huntler. We got it. So that's good. And then the most recent thing that I watched, which I literally only watched yesterday, was the film called Bed Peace from 1969, which is related more to the albums that I've been listening to. I'll talk about them in a bit. But it's basically when John Lennon and Yoko Ono did their Bed Peace thing, where they stayed in bed for a week twice, so 2 weeks, but not the same not immediately after they went in. They did a week. They spent a week in bed in Amsterdam, and then they spent a week in bed in Toronto. No, it wasn't Toronto. It was a different Canadian city. What was it? Montreal. And it's that one that they recorded the "Give Peace a Chance" song, which is a great song. But this document was incredibly interesting, because you get to see like them doing bits of interviews and stuff like that, and it's just really interesting, and I think they're some of the best people ever. I mean, there's the regular Yoko hate comments in the description, but who gives a shit about that? Then we get into the albums. Now, I started out this month listening to Paul McCartney, and I was hoping to go through his entire discography, but I got up to 1982's Tug of War, and for some reason the official version that's uploaded to the YouTube channel is a remix as opposed to the original version, and it's all compressed and sort of modernized, and it sounds like crap. So I've unfortunately haven't actually heard any more new Paul McCartney, apart from Wings Over America, which is the live album they did, which I hadn't heard before. A triple live album, so very long, almost 2 hours, but worth every bit of listening to it, because it is very, very good. It's the best lineup of Wings, with Jimmy McCulloch, who is my favourite member of Wings, full stop, even with Paul, because my favourite Wings song is Medicine Jar, which is his song off Venus and Mars, which Venus and Mars, I think I've showed it off before, but I'm going to show it off again anyway, just because I can, so I'm just going to go get something. Venus and Mars, I have got on vinyl record. Got it from on holiday. It's an original. Well, I don't even know if it's ever been no, it has been re-released since, but this is an original 1975 vinyl record of Venus and Mars. It's quite unusual because it's a single album, but it's a gatefold, which means you've got this really cool picture on the inside, which is of the band in the Mojave Desert. So it's just a really cool album. It's also got a load of a couple of posters and stuff inside it, but I'm probably going to do a video on my vinyl collection at some point when I get more, because at the moment I only have 2 albums, which is this one. And this one, Public Image Limited's Metal Box from 1979. Again, this is the original because this was never re-released in this format. They released it a year later as a regular album, but they never released it again in the metal box. Now this, some people have got really, really clean copies of this, but why is it so loud? Why is it popping so much? I've got the bloody sock over it. Is that a bit better? I think that's a bit better. Alright. It was re-released in a not what I'm talking about. Metal. Shut up. Right, next. Back to albums that I've listened to. And just to answer your question, because I can't be bothered waiting, I've heard of R.E.M. I've listened to one song, the Shiny Happy People, and that's very, very good. So there we are. That is R.E.M., right? That's not the other one. I think that's that one. Anyway, so then I decided that if I'm not going to be able to go through Paul's discography without it all being modernized and digitalized, I'll instead go through John Lennon and Yoko Ono's discography, and not just John Lennon's albums that had Yoko Ono on them, but all of them. All the albums that either of those two people have released. I'm at least going to go up to Double Fantasy, because I know that Yoko Ono has of course had a career since, and I don't know if I want to listen to it. We'll find out based on the albums that I listened to her up to 1984, which is when Milk and Honey came out, which will be the last one that I listen to, unless I really enjoy her stuff, in which I'll carry on. Because so far I have enjoyed her stuff, because everyone always has a go at Yoko, because they're idiots. So we'll just start at the beginning with Unfinished Music number 1, Two Virgins. Now this is the one that had them nude on the cover. An interesting picture and an interesting album. It's relatively pleasant in the sense that it's quite quiet. It's quite atmospheric, like kind of ambient. And there's also a bonus track, Remember Love, which again proves, because there's only 2 reasons people ever criticize Yoko Ono. It's one, they say she broke up with the Beatles, which she didn't, and then there's the one which she can't sing, which she can. So that's that. The second one is Unfinished Music number 2, Life with the Lions, 1969. That one, I think it's more interesting, but I enjoyed it less, interestingly enough. Because even though there's more songs and there's more ideas expressed, I think overall the ideas expressed are less pleasant. And I just, I mean, it's still the songs on this are still better than anything you hear on the radio now, but nevertheless, their later albums, which I'll get to in a minute, are far more pleasant than that one in particular. Then we have the final of their trilogy of experimental albums, the Wedding album, again from 1969. That one is half the worst album of the three and half the best, because the first half is just them whispering each other's names for 22 minutes, and I mean, it's it's not just that repeated. It's like they have a range of emotions that they express, but and admittedly, I listened to almost all of these while playing Minecraft, because I've been playing a lot of Minecraft recently and watching Yogscast's Jaffa Factory Tech It series, which is incredibly entertaining because I love the Yogscast. And so doing something else while, I think if I had listened to them just on their own, it would have been a much more harrowing experience, but they're alright to listen to while doing other stuff. And so that one was... But anyway, the second half of the Wedding album is sections of interviews from their bedpiece thing again, but they're bits of interviews that don't appear in the bedpiece film, so you get a unique experience listening to the album and watching the film. Then we've got the only album, at least that I'm aware of, that was released by the quote Plastic Ono Band. A couple of albums had the title Plastic Ono Band, and the Plastic Ono Band performed on even more albums, but this is the only album released by the Plastic Ono Band, as far as I'm aware. Live Peace in Toronto, 1969. I didn't actually say that here in the description, I just put Live Peace in Toronto and then 1969 in brackets, because had I put Live Peace in Toronto 1969, that would have been a bit awkward, so I removed but the actual title of the album is Live Peace in Toronto 1969, but I just, I did it my way, because I'm a free man. That one it's the first album of theirs that there's a chance I'll listen to again, for my own pleasure. I imagine I'll probably play some of the others to annoy other people. But Live Peace in Toronto is probably the earliest album by the two that I can actually listen to and enjoy as music, as opposed to as a kind of joke. There's a Beatles song on it, Your Blues. There's also Give Peace a Chance, and a few classics like Blue Suede Shoes, and Don't Worry Kyoko, and John Let's Hope for Peace, which is of course the ultimate classic. Then we get to their studio album. So that's all the early stuff done. That's the 60s done. Now we enter the 70s with their studio albums. First we have John Lennon's Plastic Ono Band, released in 1970. This is, and most people agree, this is one of the best albums by any Beatle, post-Beatle. It's got Ringo on it, and he's brilliant as always. You got Klaus Voormann on bass. He's incredible. It's such a good album. Like, there isn't a bad song on the album. There literally is not a bad song on the album. There are a couple of songs which they're not uncomfortable to listen to musically, but lyrically they are like the songs that bookend the album, Mother and My Mummy's Dead. They're not pleasant lyrics, but they are beautiful pieces of music. And it's just one of the greatest albums of all time. And then something else that I would consider one of the greatest albums of all time, but the majority of people would disagree with me, is Yoko Ono's Plastic Ono Band, because it was recorded at the exact same during the same sessions at the same time as John Lennon's Plastic Ono Band album. They have almost identical front covers, and they were released on exactly the same day. The only difference is that on John Lennon's album, they're both leaning against a tree, and he's leaning against her. And there's a picture of him as a child on the back. And on her album, she's leaning against him, and there's a picture of her as a child on the back. But apparently, despite the fact that there's a picture of her on the album, some people still bought her version back in 1970 and got very angry about it, so that must have been very amusing. But her album, maybe it's certainly less pleasant to listen to than his, because she does that kind of screaming thing she does, but I like it. Because a couple of things I've noticed about it. Number one, it shares quite a few similarities musically with Pill. At least this album and the previous album, which was their first. This was their second album. Particularly on the first song, Why, the guitar, John Lennon's, why does it keep clipping so much? Why does it do that? The John Lennon's guitar sounds very incredibly similar to Keith Levine's guitar on this album. So it was 9 years earlier. It was 1970. So you've got post-punk before punk. Think about that, people. Think about that for a second. You've got post-punk before punk. And people have a go at Yoko. Like, people say stuff about her. They say, like, she wouldn't have been famous if it wasn't for John Lennon. Yeah, well, John Lennon wouldn't have been famous if it wasn't for the Beatles. So that doesn't make any sense. And also, she was already famous, at least in the New York art scene, before she'd even met John Lennon, because she was a part of the Fluxus movement, and she'd done films and sculptures and stuff like that. So she was already famous. So people just are retarded. And anyway, something else about again, Ringo is on it, again, and Klaus Voormann is on bass again. And I actually think that Klaus Voormann's bass is better on her Plastic Ono Band than it is on John's Plastic Ono Band. That's just my opinion, but I just think he's more sort of wild. And it sounds quite I mean, really, for an album from 1970, if someone played it to me and I didn't know it, I would have guessed it was from the late 70s, like either 1978, 1979, possibly even 1980. But it's from 1970, so it's really ahead of its time. It's post-punkish and new wavy in the guitar, and that's my favourite era, the late 70s. So something from the early 70s that sounds like it's from the late 70s is like a perfect thing, in my opinion, and I just love it. On my phone, I've got his Plastic Ono Band and her Plastic Ono Band. I've sandwiched them together as a double album. I mean, I don't know if I should have even done that, to be honest. Like, what if one day I want to listen to hers, then I'll have to skip past his, so I'll probably separate them. But anyway, then we go into John Lennon's Imagine, 1971, another one of the classic albums. I like it a little bit less than Plastic Ono Band. That's just my personal taste. I don't think it's objectively worse. I prefer the music on Plastic Ono Band to Imagine, but it's still a brilliant, brilliant album. The opposite, production-wise, to the Plastic Ono Band. Plastic Ono Band is very sort of dry and raw, and Imagine is very sort of processed and reverbed and wall of sound. Phil Spector. That's great, man. Although Phil Spector also worked on the Plastic Ono Band album as well, but I'm pretty sure he only produced a couple of songs, and John ended up doing the final mix anyway. So I think that's what happened there. But Imagine is truly a Phil Spector production, and it shows in the sense that it's very good. Because even if he did later murder someone, in my opinion, that doesn't stop him being one of the greatest producers of all time. So leave that at that. And then the latest album that I've listened to, which I listened to just last night, is Yoko Ono's Fly, also from 1971. also produced at the same time as Imagine, although a couple of the songs they had recorded a couple of years earlier, like the Don't Worry Kyoko, which was recorded in 1969, and the title track Fly, which was recorded in 1970. But anyway, so this album I have mixed opinions on. It's a double album, which most of the time for me is a good thing, and in this it kind of is, because it allows it to express more ideas. So the first, I'll review it side by side. So side one, there are 2 tracks: the almost 4-minute Midsummer New York and the almost 17-minute Mind Train, both of which are really good. I really love both of those, even if one is nearly 17 minutes long. It's a 17 minutes of a really steady drum groove and just some, just it's good. So side one is great. Side two is mostly great. There's 6 songs on side 2. The first 4, Mind Holes, Don't Worry Kyoko, Mrs. Lennon, and Hirake, which was originally called, when it was released as a single a couple of years earlier. Although I think actually just a year, I don't know. When it was released as a single, it was called Open Your Box. I don't know why she renamed it for the album, but she did. Those 4 are really good. Then we have Toilet Piece, which is just a recording of a toilet being flushed. And then we have Oh Wind, which is just, I mean, it's not unpleasant, but it's just long for what it is, because it's just a very sort of kind of ambient kind of thing, and it's just a bit long for what it is. And that for me is when the album starts to go downhill. The entire of side 3, which is the 10-minute Airmail, the 5-minute Don't Count the Waves, and the 9-minute You, are all kind of beatless, melodyless, kind of noise. And I don't really like any of them that much. I mean, they're interesting, and there's a lot of kind of reverb and backwards reverb and echo and stuff like that, echo in different directions, and it's it's interesting, but I'm not really that into that. And then the entirety of side 4 as well, the 22-minute Fly, which is literally just Yoko Ono kind of going like, just kind of mumbling into the microphone, squeaking, for 22 minutes. And John Lennon does join on backwards electric guitar right at the end, but it was only like for a couple of minutes, and the entire thing is 22 minutes long. Bit too much, even for me, I'm here to defend Yoko Ono when everyone else hates her. Even for me, 22 minutes of her just sort of mumbling and squeaking is a bit too much for me. Now, if his distorted backwards electric guitar was going throughout the whole song, I might be able to last 10 minutes. Still not 22, but I might have been able to last 10. I mean, keep in mind that just a solid drum groove got me through Mind Train, and that's 16 minutes. So 22 minutes, if they'd treated it the same way, I probably would have been able to get through that as well. But I just don't really like that song. If it is a song, even. And then we have the final song on the album, although there are a few bonus tracks that I'll talk about in a minute. Telephone Piece, the final song on the album. Again, just 30 seconds of it. This time, instead of a toilet flushing, it's a telephone ringing. But something interesting they did with it is, for the English, American, and Japanese releases of the album, the recording of the telephone was a telephone ring of those, because apparently, I didn't even know this, but apparently those 3 countries, England, America, and Japan, each have a very distinctive telephone ring. I don't know which one the one on YouTube is. I presume it's the American one, because the America seems to be the default setting in the world. But it doesn't really matter. But it'd be good if you had them as like options, like which version of the album do you want. But anyway, that's that. And then there's a couple of bonus tracks. I can't remember many of them. Between the Takes, I think I didn't like. Will You Touch Me, which was actually just a demo, but that was pretty good. The Path was just kind of squeaky electronic, which usually I'd like, but it's very repetitive, so I don't really like it that much. And Headplay, which is a melody of my a medley of my 3 least favourite songs on the album, You, Airmail and Fly. So, you know, I didn't even bother listening to that one, to be honest with you. I feel a bit bad. Then again, I skipped Fly as well. I listened to the first like 5 minutes and I was like, okay, I get it. So this album, the first 2 sides, side 1, side 2, and the song Will You Touch Me, I like. So I reckon I probably will put this on my phone eventually, but I'm probably going to edit it down. I'm probably going to keep sides 1, the entirety of side 1, side 2, except I would remove Toilet Piece and Oh Wind and replace it with Will You Touch Me, and that would be that album. So that's that. So yeah, that's that. But I did enjoy it, even if it got a bit long and a bit, even for me, a bit unpleasant towards the end. But yeah, still a good album, and I still think probably a masterpiece. Finally, answering your questions. Well, you had 1 question to ask, Digby, and I've answered it, and you're not even here anymore. So, I hope you've all enjoyed. I've only been going for about half an hour, longer than I thought I would, though. So, guess I got that going for it. Is yawning seriously enough to clip it? Really? I mean, I literally just said yawn. Yawning. Is yawning still really? See you later. Hope you've all enjoyed yourselves.